So I was kind of inspired slash recently inspired by one of my subscribers actually to retest this deck and like pick it up in a slightly different way than how I normally approached it, which was trying not to brick. Cause the bricks in this deck are very obvious. It's your arms cards and Trick Moon. Like this deck can like brick in two different ways. If you never see a right arms, or if you never see Trick Moon, then basically like it just becomes like a higher hill to climb for you to beat your opponent, because you're also battling your own deck. But another problem I would say that the deck did have was like soul building, or like not like soul building in terms of if you can't equip an arms card every turn, then you're gonna have, or Persona Ride every turn, you're gonna have a hard time building soul. And this is the part where I was inspired by one of my subscribers to give this card a try. I'll shout him slash her out because I don't know their gender. I'll shout them out when we get there. Let's start with the arms cards. So I'm playing 4 copies of Spear. Obviously, it lets you double equip on turn 3. So this is the right arms that you want to see, if possible. If at all possible. Like I said, like one of the key bricks in this deck is just never seeing the right arms. Obviously, off of the ride line, you could search the left. More often than not, you're gonna search the left unless you open it up in hand. If you open it up in hand, then I am playing 2 copies of the sword. If you open up the shield, so you could still search the sword, so you're guaranteed to have your double equipped. Oh wait, can't see that. Let me just do it like this. So I'm only playing 7 arms in total. Technically only 6 because you're always guaranteed to search one. I don't feel like you need to play a higher count than this. This is what to me this is what like feels like the most you can do right now until we do eventually get an arm searcher, which would be very neat. I feel like that's something that's like needed in the deck, or maybe like something that dumps an arms card to the drop zone. But yeah, we're only maxing out on the 4 spear, 2 swords, just because I do like to see sword, because I do like to ping my opponent for a damage. And if the goal is to equip every turn regardless, then you don't mind sacrificing your sword. And then obviously we're playing 4 Trick Moons. Again, very key. Ooh, I thought I had more room than this. So wait, where does it end? Hold on. Where does it end? Right here. Okay. Playing 4 Trick Moons because, again, like, this is a key card of your deck. You need at least 1 Trick Moon to do something, because that's what makes your Vanguard like 48k without Persona Reds. And then you use her ability, give her a crit. You already know the rest. That's like that's the big play of this deck, is to set up a Trick Moon column behind your Vanguard with a crit, so that your opponent obviously has to try and PG the Vanguard every turn, or just eat that 2 damage. So again, maxing out on 4 copies of this card, and honestly, playing this deck, the only change I would make is when we do get the grade 1 promo that does dump Moon, I would play that at 4 copies instead of the other grade 1 I'm playing currently, because that would actually make this deck, in my opinion, damn near perfect. Because then your only brick that you would have to worry about is not seeing your right arms card. And if that's the case, that's the only thing you're worrying about, you could hard mulligan for it. Like, you don't have 2 things that you have to try and like hard mull for. You could just hard mull for one of them. And I think that this build is perfect in that sense for that promo card, because I'm able to build a lot of soul with this version of the deck. But onto the grade 3s. We're playing 3 Persona Ride, maxing on Persona Ride, obviously, because it's very crucial. It just helps you gain that needed soul, because you do need to Soul Blast 2 every turn to wipe your opponent's front row, and to just always have that crit pressure. And then this is where I was inspired by my subscriber. I'm playing 4. Let me put it right here. I'm playing 4 copies of Penetrate Dragon Tribash. Now, let me shout him out real quick. Him slash her out. Sean JX. Shout outs to my subscriber, Sean, or I think they're a subscriber. But they commented on one of my recent videos where my opponent was playing BAVSARGRA, and basically my opponent didn't open up optimally in one of the games, and they were basically like saying that BAVSARGRA isn't really that good, and then this person just comes out in the comments like, what are you talking about, man? You could do this, you could do that, and the third. And I read it, I'm like, wait a minute. Well, that's actually a pretty good idea. Let me try that. So I've been playtesting with Tribash in the deck, and oh my lord. You just have so much soul to work with. It's crazy. Because, like, also, it just creates an insane amount of pressure from turn 3 onwards. Like, you don't really do anything until turn 3. You're just basically Vanguard swing, Vanguard swing, Vanguard swing. But when you get on turn 3, your opponent's most likely at 1 or 2 damage, if they took any damage at all. If you double equipped with Spear, you swing with Tribash, you put Tribash into your soul, and you're saying, are you going to take this 3 damage while you're at 1 or 2? Or at 0 and risk me checking a crit or another crit? Usually, if you tell your opponent I'm swinging for 2 damage and they're at 1 or 2 damage or 0 damage, they'll say no guard. But if you tell your opponent that while they're at 1 or 2 damage or 0 damage, I'm swinging for 3 damage, they're more likely to sacrifice that PG that they were saving for your Persona Red turn. Or if they were saving for your next turn where you plan on doing the same thing. So this card is just so good because it feeds soul and it creates an immense amount of pressure on top of what you already have. Granted, there are gonna be times where like the extra crit is it doesn't really matter as much. It's to your game plan, but there's also going to be other times where you can't Soul Blast a 2, so your Vanguard doesn't have a crit, and your opponent's at 3, they're just going to try and say no guard. You can swing with Tribash first, and then swing with your Vanguard, boom, like you still have that crit pressure. Or say they don't have like an optimal front board, or like they don't have a front board at all, then you're just going to be like, I'm going to save my 2 soul, and I'm just going to like refund my costs with Tribash. So this is just a really good card in the deck. Like, automatically play it at 4 copies. And it works so well with BAVSARGRA because until we get Laghorn, there's really no deck right now in the game that like commits a full back row. Like, especially that early in the game, turn 3 or turn 4, they don't commit a full back row. No one's gonna commit a full back row against this deck. And I've realized that I don't play any other retire cards in this deck. The only retire I have is my Vanguard's Soul Blast 2 ability. But I realize I don't really need it because as long as I get this card off at least once or twice, that's the value I really wanted to get off this card. I don't expect to get it off all the time because eventually your opponent's going to be smart enough to smart enough to try and play around you. But in those early stages of the game, they really don't have a choice. Like, how many people are gonna have enough cards in hand to call 3 back row cards that like aren't triggers in the early game? And then moving on to the grade 2s, I'm playing 4 of Ashruna. I wasn't playing this card earlier because I just valued consistency over the power but this card is really good in this deck just for calling off the grade 1 Samsara and calling off Trick Moon. Especially like I saw plays where I didn't realize you could do in that match was that you could basically you could use Ashruna to call Trickstar to your middle column, and it was a free call essentially if you didn't have a Trickstar 2 call to at the time. Like I've had like a lot of times where like I equipped and I soul charged a trick. I've been saying Trickstar, I'm so sorry. I soul charged the Trick Moon, and then I soul blasted it after the fact. I was able to get it with Arshuna, or Ashurina, however you say that name. Anyways, on to the rest of the grade 1s. We're playing 4 of Samsara. It's just the best other grade 1 that you can play. It's a 13k attacker or a booster. It also becomes an interceptor if you have the left equipped, if I believe. The right is what gives it 5k, but if you have the left equipped, it also makes it interceptor, which is really good. But this is the only thing that I would change from the list when we get that promo. This is getting cut out the deck, and I'm playing 4 copies of the promo, so that the only way I can possibly brick in this deck is if I don't have a right arms, which, again, you could hard mulligan for a right arms. And then 4 PGs, nothing really to say, DPGs, best PGs. And then moving on to the triggers, I also slightly changed the trigger lineup, like by 1 percentile really. I'm playing 4 heal triggers, 8 crit, 4 of the Into Soul crit, because sometimes, even though this deck does build a lot of soul, sometimes you do call the Into Soul crit. 3 draw, so I was playing 4 draw just because I was more focused on consistency, but in this build, I'm more focused on power and beat. Not focusing on consistency. I do know the points of where I can brick in this deck, but I also know that just having Tri-Bash helps me surmount pressure even if I don't have one or the other. Like, if I have Trick Moon and I only have the shield equipped, okay, I can still swing with Tri-Bash first, put Tri-Bash into Soul, my Vanguard gets a crit, that's 20 of crit. Even if I don't have the other arms, at least on turn 3. And then one of the Dragon Empire Overtrigger, like I've always said, this is the first Dragon Empire deck that came out that made this Overtrigger scary, just because it was swinging with a crit, and then if you restand it, swings with another. It swings again with a crit. So it's just really game breaking / game pushing. But that's basically my BAVSARGRA deck profile. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think down below. Again, shout outs to Sean JX for giving me this idea. I honestly, this was not even in my mind because I was so mad. I was so tunnel visioned on the fact that BAVSARGRA support should be better. Why isn't it better? Like, we're getting really good cards, but we're not fixing BAVSARGRA's problems. This helps fix one of its problems, which was maintaining a soul. This card alone makes it so that you actually have plays against the prison matchup. This card alone, that you're actually able to beat the prison matchup. That isn't just not a feels bad, they're just gonna grind you out. No, there's things that you can actually do against that matchup. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna let y'all go. Peace.